Hello and welcome back. This is Riding Hood, Part 2. Still, she can see his eyes clearly as though a variant strand of light found a space in the oil black, which lay distinctively across his gaze. Something in the way he looked at her made the hair on her arms rise with a microscopic spark of electricity. Looking into her somehow like he was looking for that most pleasing bits of her. She feels compelled when the music begins to take down her straps, pulling her top loosely away. She shakes visibly with a nervous nature exposing herself to him. Why so shy? His question somehow held a twinge of laughter to it, mocking the way she loosed herself upon him. She couldn't answer him, her voice caught within her throat. But he is right. She plasters herself open for anyone else with no shame, having difficulty placing words, the emotions that cooled in her stomach. Do you think yourself ugly when reality takes you? Placing his exact description that currently escapes her. A meek, vulnerable voice came out, and again she refused to look in those eyes. Yes, it's the way you look at me. A sense of joy and variable disappointment with her statement. Oh, bother. His low voice suggested that he was trying to hide that. Yet she could hear it clearly enough. Looking at his face, the blank form in the shadow as it was, with some puzzlement. I feel compelled to ask you. Do you intend on giving up your story? Everyone has one. I detest them. Their attempts at lies. People often make up things and are so verily escaped by them. They don't escape me, though. However, the attempts themselves, if only in passing, are gravely insulting. His tone is flat again, with no sign of emotion. The fact his voice never changed in tone is yet still being understood, with the differences in meanings and punctuations or exclamations very clear to her. What? I don't quite understand that. He tilts his head like a puppy looking at a bug scurrying across the ground. You have a story. There always is one. Woeful things indeed. A pause between them at his words as they sink into her. What assumptions could be made? While the dancers work the small crowd into a whooping, drooling mess, flesh for the feast of eyes, the small talk, the idle chit-chat to pass the time, made in dark corners when no one can see the truth of what was happening. Most didn't want to see, not in those moments when morality is given license to be set free. Dirty deeds are still dirty no matter what depths of shadows can conceal them. Promises of pleasure beyond what a tip could gain for a few feeble scraps of paper, no more real than the tooth fairy. I really don't have a story. She finally breaks the silence with her words, hesitant but honest. I do what I have to do. I make ends meet. I live with my grandmother in the meantime. I take care of her during the day, not as fancy as you might have imagined. For a moment she felt defiant of him, with the truth, however freeing. I see no qualms about the choices then, knowing now where they have led you. A detectable sense of curiosity. Not really. It's a job. It pays. I try not to think to death. Receiving a nod from him. He moves fluidly with action, coming across the table to her side. I would think that a very wise thing indeed, your role model. Is she ill? That she would need looking after? The petite woman shakes her head. Just old. She has some trouble walking, needs help with little things, that's all. That's very kind of you. He paid a compliment to her, but a hiss to his voice brought her back to hesitation. The lights flicker and the music dulls, causing her to look up. Past him to the music box, where a man waves her back. Well, I'm up. It was nice talking to you. She gets up and walks towards the back along the stage side. All the while she could feel a shadow at her back, the strange, eerie glare of his eyes on her. It made her look back to see him still sitting, this time with his back to her to the stage. Did not make her feel any more at ease. Once she was out of sight, she could still feel him watching, like he was studying a petri dish filled with a new spore. There she felt an absence as she changed her clothes, ready to wander through the forest. Twisted curtains and twisted faces. A missing link made all the larger when she stepped out to sway to the music, and he was gone. She could still feel him watching, the weight of his stare over her skin. Just behind her, just out of sight, smelling of sweet promises. As she closes her eyes to dance and ignore the crowd, she dreams of his touch. The grip of it hard on her skin, as she danced for those much less worthy. The late hours brought the end to the show. All the freaks go home, to wives, to children, to work, to lives unfulfilled. She shields herself from the ghastly ghost's gaze with the fuzzy cotton of a deep burgundy hooded sweatshirt. As warm as the sweet spot he stares left between her legs. She knew in that little leftover space in her brain that screamed a warning he was dangerous. But wasn't that all part of the fun? A strange sort of kind, just enough to cause pause, begging to free yourself carefully. Money in hand, another night spent dead was over. The warmth of a shower and the friendlier caress of her hands were restored into town, quiet, secrecy still intact. A small virtue, an even smaller miracle.